everybody. Welcome to our weekly Q&A where your questions are answered by the experts. My name is Joe Murphy, Marketing Manager here at Sigilant. Today, we are joined by Dr. Ben Harrison and Dr. Johnny Milliken. These two individuals are two of the brightest minds in the cybersecurity space, and they carved out some time out of their busy day to join us today. So we have two questions that we want to ask every week. So the first question, you guys, is what's topical in cybersecurity this week? So let's dive right into that.
Okay, Johnny, so we didn't rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first. If you want to do that now, we can do that on camera. If you want to try it.
All right, well,
Like it.
is the winner going or is the loser going?
Well, Johnny lost, so he goes first. That's
All
how
right.
it works.
Okay.
So things are happening in cybersecurity at the moment. Obviously, what we have is a pretty unprecedented scenario in terms of people very quickly having to work from home, and businesses that were previously perhaps ill-prepared for that or had no consideration that that would ever be a thing they would have to go and do, are having to go and try to work out how to go do that very quickly. So in the end, what you see is a lot of people who are doing things quickly in a way that is more likely to be functional rather than necessarily be secure, right? And in fairness, this is not a new paradigm, right? I mean, one of the reasons that cybersecurity is such a hot focus is because even without the instances of times of great change, people just tend not necessarily to think about security as one of their high priority things. But certainly now is the time whenever people are potentially opening up more unexpected holes and chinks in their armor, and attackers are aware of this and are constantly probing to identify if there's any way in past defenses that previously existed. So that's the reality that's occurring. So the best way that people can attempt to combat that really is to gain visibility. The most important thing and the most critical thing that cybersecurity runs on top of is data. Is having the necessary information in a centralized location that some people can go and access as needed, right? So even in a scenario where people cannot at the moment spend a lot of time or a lot of resources in trying to ultimately significantly increasing the security of the implementations, because look, it's important to keep the business running, right? Security may very well be a secondary consideration versus just getting people working. But things that you can do while you're doing that setup, certainly increase logging, making sure that as much as possible is being reported and at least put somewhere where you're storing it in a long-term perspective. And if in a couple of days, a couple of hours, a couple of weeks, you eventually have the time to come back and then look at what went on, if there were any problems in there, you'll at least have the data to know, right? The thing that always ends up costing people time and discovery of breaches is mostly because they have not looked at the data or they didn't have the data to begin with. Right. So if you cannot spend a lot of time trying to make sure that you are securing yourself appropriately as you try to expand to ensure remote working from home, at the very least, make sure you've got the necessary visibility so that later on you can go and do an investigation and make sure that nothing untoward happened during that period.
Awesome. Ben, do you want to add anything to that or do you want to jump into question number 2?
No, I have a few things to add. So we did have a chat beforehand to try and not talk over each other. I totally agree, echoing what Johnny said, that these are unprecedented times. A lot of people are doing a lot of things that they previously haven't and wasn't really on their radar. And that is reason to be vigilant, to be extra vigilant, and to keep track of everything that's happening now in case of an incident or issue later after your top priority of keeping the wheels on your business has moved to the next stage. So a couple of other things just to add on that. It's noticeable that an awful lot of organizations do not have business continuity plans in place. And that is starting to show a picture across the globe. Any business that had them was able to very quickly, within a day, move their operations offsite. And I'm very happy to say that Sigilant was one of such organizations, because from a decision point to moving everybody offsite was really ready within a day or two. And it was really just the immediate prep work that we needed to do. There wasn't any decision. There wasn't any complicated discussions of how we were going to achieve things, because we'd had those up front. As a security company, you kind of have to hand in your security credentials if you don't do those things up front. But we certainly understand that for a lot of businesses, it was never a priority for them. But again, it's a bit like a storm shelter. You never see a tornado. Why build a storm shelter until you need it? And it's too late by that point. So we're not in a position, and we certainly don't want to join the other security organizations who are trying to exploit the situation with fear, uncertainty, and doubt. What we're instead doing is trying to help people through this. And the message is that, look, keep your wheels on, keep running. That's the priority. And over time, we'll start to secure and we'll start to put things in place. But the key risks here are that a lot of organizations are doing different things very quickly with a certain amount of panic and a certain amount of lack of prep. And that means that there's likely to be mistakes made. So when people are setting up another 1,000 VPN hosts, or when people are setting up new endpoints, people are setting up new servers, scaling their video conferencing capabilities to deal with their entire customer and product base simultaneously. That's when you cut corners, and that's when mistakes are made. So most of what we're seeing in terms of the active breaches across not just Sigilant customers, but globally, are happening from just things like default passwords, default admin accounts. The real basics of security are out the window whenever someone says, right, tomorrow everyone's working from home. So do certainly be cognizant and sympathetic to our IT teams across the globe, but do try and stay vigilant for those sins that we're committing just to keep the wheels on. Ideally, we would do everything perfectly and we would never take a risk, but in these trying times, it's more important to keep the wheels on and then plug those gaps as quickly as possible afterwards. So security reviews over the course of the next, I would say, couple of days. Most organizations will have solved their immediate problems and bedded in. It is definitely a good advice to undertake a global security review of your entire organization as it currently sits, given how you are now operating, because that's radically different to even what you would have been operating like before. And with the exception of the likes of government, top tier Fortune 500s, the large organizations which have entire departments and budgets just for disaster recovery and security, in the smaller organization in the SME market, if you haven't done, or even if you've done a security analysis every year as part of your PCI compliance, the likelihood that that extended to an in-depth review of what would happen if everyone suddenly has to work from home or you have to close parts of your operation, it's practically nil. So it's really important in the next week or two, whenever you get yourself settled, take a security review, take stock. What have you got? What's vulnerable? What systems have you very rapidly put in place? What checks and measures haven't you taken? And work through that way. Because the entire world is operating like this, so you get a certain amount of time after making maybe some questionable decisions or some quick actions which maybe didn't have the right scrutiny on them. You get some time, but don't let that time run out. So get a security review in place as soon as you're able. And that's directly speaking with regards to our current situation. On the vulnerabilities and exploit front, a couple of interesting things just from the past week. We're seeing ransomware, as we always have. Phishing, it's now been pretty much globally accepted that phishing targets whatever is hot, and what's hot right now is coronavirus. So certainly phishing is still a major thing. Be vigilant, particularly in the times where panic can make quick decisions. But what we're also seeing is the rise of VPN and of video conferencing solutions. So not that they weren't popular before, but they've just exploded in popularity. And that along with it is really interesting to watch, because we would always have said that the targets are dictated by whatever has most user base or whatever is the widest surface. And now that Zoom suddenly has 5, 10, 15 times the users, immediately security researchers went after it. And so I believe it's just in the past week or two, we've had 2 or 3 major vulnerabilities, a Mac OS 1 and a Windows OS 1. Details are unimportant, but really what we're illustrating here is, look, make sure all of your other security controls are in place as part of your review, because the systems we're all now relying on are now bigger targets, far bigger targets. So making sure that users are restricted on their local machines, making sure that you have certain checks and measures in place, your antivirus, your intrusion detection systems becomes more and more important, because we're all flooding towards new systems that are high priority targets.
So Ben, I didn't want to interrupt you there, but it's funny that you mentioned the Zoom. I had this conversation with Steve. I filled him in, but last night, a group of friends and I were on a Zoom celebrating a friend of ours' birthday. She had just turned 30.
Yes.
And the host was a student he works at a large university in Boston, and he was using his Zoom.
Yes.
Of course, it was an open invitation, right? We wanted friends just to pop in and out.
Yes.
Well, about 15 minutes into the celebration, we got what I learned, Zoom bombed.
Zoom jacked. Yeah.
Zoom jacked. So someone took control of the screen, went on some dirty websites, opened up Microsoft Paint, was writing all these cryptic messages to us, and it was scary.
Yeah.
And until yesterday, I had never seen something like that happen, and it was mind blowing. It was definitely done by a professional. I mean, just how it was executed, it was well done. I'll say that.
Joe, I am personally hurt. You said this happened yesterday?
Yeah, it happened last night, actually. So
I'm on the end of a phone. Why didn't you call me? I would have loved to have got in on that.
Yeah, I wish it was recorded, just so I could have some proof and to share with you guys, what I went through. It wouldn't be kosher to share because there was a lot of bad stuff, but
understood.
Yeah.
Well, from that perspective, that behavior is what I would count as, traditionally the term was script kiddie or skitty. That's someone who's joking around or appears to be joking around. Although interestingly, some attackers are now using that kind of activity as cover, so that it is just dismissed as, oh, it's just kids. Those things happen. It's real world. And if you look at a Zoom link, I mean, if you just look at the link to this meeting, the link isn't that complex. So because it's not that complex, and because the system where we talked before about the volume of users,
right?
Because the system has now got far more users, the chance that if you randomly generate a Zoom URL that you'll actually find somebody, that chance goes way up.
Yeah.
Way more percentage you're going to randomly find somebody now that far more people are using it. So yeah, people do Zoom jack. Advice on that: put a password on your.
We did. So right after that, we all kind of scattered like a bunch of scared high school kids running from the police. And then we spun up a password protected one and all sort of just took it in. We were just all sort of taken back by the situation, I mean, it was wild.
It does happen.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why Zoom has been so popular is by virtue of the fact that, for example, you can take a link, you can give it to somebody, and then they can just join the call, right? But then again, this is some of the standard tenets of security, right? That's very usable. Usability is high. Security, however, is low, right? If you wanted to implement a better foundation of security, it would by default be requiring a password and a login and an account for everybody that wanted to actually join that call. But of course, that would reduce the usability. That would create a certain number of barriers. It would have a certain number of people go, oh, I don't really want to do that. I'm not going to go and join at all. But then it also keeps out the bad guys, right? So at the moment, right, again, as we start making these choices generally, but using it like the Zoom and whatever else, right, just be aware that things that are highly usable and things that you think, oh, that's really quick and easy to use, then have a think of like, well, hang on a minute, there's always a trade-off. You get very little for free. So what are the trade-offs? And a lot of the time for those kinds of things, it is actually the security component. But in fairness, you're not unique in that, Joe, right? There was an awful lot of flack sent against the UK government recently because evidently they were running a UK cabinet meeting with the Prime Minister on it via Zoom, and they had shared the link as well. So again, there are high-profile people that are making these mistakes, right? If you are a smaller organization just trying to keep the wheels and the wheels running and the lights on, right? I mean, you're going to be making these mistakes as well. Even the people who are supposed to really truly be knowing better and have their security as a really truly number one component, at this time of rapid expansion and rapid solutions to problems, are also letting those things slip.
Yeah.
It is worth. Sorry.
Go ahead.
It is worth noting that in certain organizations and at certain large global events for the security industry, events and competitions such as Zoom jacking and VNC Roulette was another popular one, where those groups will actively look for the connections they can connect to and try to do so in a live fashion. So this is very much to a lot of people treated like a game. It doesn't mean that we should be any less vigilant, but the reality of the situation is that the proliferation of that is inevitable. It means that we, if anything, need to accept that those things are going to happen without, on the other hand, suddenly panicking and going, okay, right, that's it, no more Zoom. Now, subject to the full details of the vulnerabilities being released and patches, But we need to be cautious that in these difficult times, we don't react so negatively to what are inevitable threats that we are in a position of hamstringing our own business operations. And as Johnny said, number one important thing is sometimes it's just important to keep the wheels on. And we can keep the wheels on at these difficult times globally, and then make sure we do the right, diligent things in the short term. We should all get through this in a secure way.
So get this, one of the kids on the call worked for LogMeIn, and he was like, "This wouldn't happen on GoToMeeting." I was just like, he's like, "It's safe and secure." That's not a pitch, but that was funny.
If only it was fast, reliable, with good video and audio quality, that would be great. You might want to cut that bit. I'm not sure commercially where that lands me.
Hey, opinions are our own.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so you guys are in the thick of things right now. So a lot of people that are listening to this, you know, they may not be customers of Sigilant, so they don't have the luxury of having folks like yourself in their corner. So for those people, you guys, I mean, what type of advice, or let's start with our customers, right? So what type of advice are you giving our customers that you're monitoring during these trying times?
So one of the things that we're seeing across our customer base, and again, our customers are not unique compared to large swaths of the population in any given country around the world that is currently having to react to this, right? One of the things that we're having to be vigilant with on our customers is changes in the overall number or status of the logs that they're sending us, right? Because generally speaking, whenever everything is set up and working in a standard business operation, right, we know which admins are supposed to be going into which boxes. We understand which hosts are more important and which of them are sending us logs and whatever else. And then all of a sudden, everybody scatters to work from home. They're using new systems that may perhaps not be integrated in with our solutions, right? So one of the things that we're trying to go through our customers in order to reiterate is that if you're changing your systems and you need some help in order to go and do that, like we are here in order to help as a security partner to make sure that you're trying to make those best security decisions as you can, right? Pursuant obviously to keeping the wheels on, right? But whatever it is that you can do. And part of that is in ensuring that we are actually receiving the logs from any of those new systems to make sure that if people are going to be logging in from a new endpoint that has been spun up, that we are actually getting visibility of those things, right? As I sort of alluded to in my first answer, you know, the data is the oil that fuels the entire machine, right? So we have to make sure that we're continually getting that stream of data. If there's more data being generated, that's great. We want to be able to gain access to that. But if there's data being generated somewhere, but it's not getting fed into us, you know, in terms of a security function, well, then that's a problem. It becomes very, very difficult for us to either go and investigate things that might be strange or really truly understand the context of new things that are going on, right? So that's really one of the things we're working with customers is to make sure that we continue to maintain the visibility as they change their environment around.
Perfect. Ben, do you have anything to add on that, or?
Well, as is usual, I usually agree with Johnny. But yeah, realistically, I think we sort of covered it a little bit up front. And the things we're telling our customers to do is the same things we're always telling our customers to do, which is stay vigilant, follow and build your security process, and don't let the distraction of the current situation pull you away from what are just the basics, the security basics that you need to do really well. It's in this difficult time, certainly we can follow the old adage of keep calm and carry on, and that's really one of the best messages. And Joe, I know I shared with you a marketing graphic that I put together, but yeah, definitely. I mean, on that, it's keep calm and work from home, and that's the best we can do. So not getting tied up in, or not getting speculatively tied up in an awful lot of security FUD. Just sticking to the basics, get those covered first. And if it means that, I mean, in the current time, if it means that your external PCI audit is going to slip, I mean, right now I can't see an auditor making any site visits. So if it's those sorts of things, and as long as you pull back your resources to keep your core strong, the basics are covered, your reviews are in place, your password policies are strong, all of your security measures, procedures are up, running, working, installed, up to date, you're patching, you're looking for new vulnerabilities that actually apply to you, you're keeping track of your systems, your security operations center is monitoring your systems. Particularly, that's a difficult job for them, given that their entire world that they have known for the entire existence of your organization has just changed. The patterns of traffic, the patterns of logons, the types of connections that they see every day and had almost a heartbeat of, called sort of the security heartbeat of an organization, comes with a rhythm and a pattern which you learn over time, and you can spot differences. That's out the window. Those guys are now trying to learn it from day one. And so in those situations, we're saying to our guys, look, this is very different. And in security as a service, it's actually a good thing, because we see so many diverse customers with different heartbeats and different patterns that to us, yeah, some organizations have radically changed, but normally they just change to looking like other organizations in terms of their traffic profiles and in terms of their threat and attack profiles. So really, from our perspective, it's not such a big change, but we respect for the teams who are out there who do see such a massive change. And that's pretty important, is to stick to those basics first, not get bogged down in the detail of the advanced stuff. If you're, yeah, don't put locks in your windows if your back door's left open. Just start with the basics.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Ben. Thank you, Johnny. All right, everybody, that wraps up our first Q&A, where your questions are answered by the experts. Be sure to tune in for our next Q&A session. We're going to hold these every Thursday for the foreseeable future. Please submit your questions in advance, or feel free to submit them live in the question block. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much, and stay safe out there. Peace.